Oh, here they are. Yeah, that's it. Bring on the drink. Who's got a drink? Does everyone have a drink? Put your drinks up. Thank you. Thank you. Needed. Earned by these two men. Fair play to them. Or you've earned that.
So, mouthful that goes down, he's got to get a rougher ride.
His books are all nonsense. They're all made up. He told me that. So I want this to be our chat. I don't want this and I think some of the great things about Feels Good is it's like, oh, the person on high who speaks and the poor old farmer's there to kind of plot. It hasn't been like that at all. You kind of have at these people over the course of the day and bump into them. If you have questions, they're yours for the evening. Grab them like, lambs to the slaughter. Because you get to do that at these events. This isn't a normal agriculture where the people go home at 3:30 and you don't see them anymore and they never work on a Friday with some of the powers that be. This is people who live it and they love it. What's he saying about me? So at some point when we've heard too much, we'll just start talking and we'll just start discussing, because I think everybody's journey is no different from their journey. They're further along and they talk a bit more nonsense, but we have the right to sort of ask our questions, and this is the place to come to bring your questions. So thank you for coming and thanks for staying with us so long. There's a language barrier here, because you're from Cumbria and you're from Sligo and I'm from Cork, so if we need a translator, we probably have to... Rona, do we have a translator? How are we for time? We don't have a finish line here. There's nothing next, so we can just keep talking.
We've only just got
I think it's about a half an hour. And I think that we're the last people standing between the bar and the people, so we have to be very careful about not getting charged over. I want to start with that language question. And there was a very interesting debate on this stage earlier on about just losing people because the way you talk about this subject. Do we need the term regen? Do we need the term conservation? Can we just be farmers and stop being divisive and stop being kind of cliquey? You have a microphone each there. You have to pick it up and turn it on and yap away. I'll throw that one to you first, James. What do you think?
No.
Microphone up to the... I think it's on. It might be on.
Was it on?
Oh.
So what was the question again? No, I was joking. We were going to be silly and do one-word answers. We thought we'd kill him and it was just all... But we should be grown-ups. I don't find the regenerative thing particularly helpful. I feel like maybe it's had its moment. It described a certain ethos or a will to do better or to learn stuff. If it's useful for other people, I'm not going to be sneery about that. For me, just like as a farmer, I want to know who the people that do the 6 things that I'm focused on brilliantly. I don't care what you call them. I just want to know who does grazing best, who does tree pasture grazing, agroforestry best. Not that there's a competition. I just want to know who the people I should devote my precious time to listening to, learning from. And I think one of the things that said was earlier today that I did agree with was I personally find it easier to focus on the issues. If I want to know how to get carbon into soil or life into soil, just tell me about the issue. It doesn't need a label. For me, it doesn't anymore need a label. And I don't know what you think, Clive. I'm interested in technically how you do stuff now.
Yeah, we can't have a technical conversation because I'm going to be exposed. My ignorance will come straight out. So we have to keep this broad because I don't know a patch of anything of what was discussed today. I mean, all of it. And I think that we've had lots of technical. So airy-fairy answers of the big picture.
Yeah, I suppose I see a sort of value in the regen thing. Well, it's a big value, actually, but I think the point that's muddied the water is that me?
Is that me? Or is that my phone?
It's your phone. Is the kind of move to certify organic. I think that's certify regen. I think that's a mistake. Because I think organic is there for that stuff. And organic has...
Maybe it's your phone. Oh.
Has been, and it plays a very fundamental role in communicating to the customer what they're getting and all that kind of thing. And I think in one way, the organic sector was kind of locked in because once it became certified, it became a list of things you couldn't do anymore. And what the regen kind of movement thing did was it allowed this space for loads of creativity and and there was no rules. You just kind of, there was principles to follow, but there's no real rules, there was no constraints. You could experiment, do all these things like Joel Salatin and all that stuff came on board. And I think it's really important to maintain that creative space to to push the boundaries and do things. I think once you certify or regen, everything is finished, and we've to call it something else and do it all over again. But as a term, it doesn't really matter. You know, if it's a term that describes creativity and the stuff that's happening in this space, then it doesn't matter what it's called. If you want to call it regen, and somebody is doing something that's not regen, it doesn't really matter, because it's not. It's only kind of starting a conversation about something that's exciting. So that's my point of view on it. I think, you know, it doesn't need to be certified. Just get on with it, do it, have fun.
I like it. Yeah, they started putting away chairs. Little did they know this was going to be brilliant, and now they're putting chairs out again. I told you. Right, we'll hop around to lots of different stuff. I don't know where the little bit of feedback is coming from. Maybe there's another microphone somewhere. I think. Are we okay up here? Are we making any mistakes? We're grand. James, who's your hero? Got him. Yes. Got him.
Farming hero.
Any version you want.
I love Albert Camus.
There's a microphone.
I love Albert. It's a bit odd and a bit nerdy. I love Albert Camus, the French novelist.
Very Oxford answer. How do you know that somebody from Oxford in the room?
I read that before I went to Oxford. I didn't have anything to do with that. And now you've got me mad, so I'm going to...
Brilliant. Success.
So for anyone that doesn't know, Albert Camus is this incredibly brave man who in the Second World War was part of the French resistance. He ends up winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. He lives in a very ideological age, and before he dies in a very cool car crash, which is a great 1960s way to die, isn't it, in a sports car on a French road.
Oh, yeah.
Before he dies in an iconic way, he distances himself from the ideologues of his age and has this amazing test where he says, I can't back an ideology if it might result in my poor grandma, who still lives in Algiers, being on a bus and being bombed. And he's talking about political violence, which some people in the 50s would have justified as anti-colonial or this or that or the other, Marxist, whatever. I'm getting a bit nerdy. But anyway, this man has an impeccable sense of human decency, and it's grounded in where he came from, which is a poor emigrant French family that had gone to the slums of Algiers. Incredibly clever, incredibly eloquent and beautiful writer. And his last book, which he doesn't quite finish before he crashes into the tree, is about how noble his grandmother, his poor family were in these slums in Algiers. I love the man.
That was a good question. So fair play to you. What's his name again?
It's called Albert Camus, and I'm sorry if that's
Write it down. Write it down. This is why we're here, to get inspiration and stuff. So I have not read all the books, but I loved Shepherd's Life. And I think it's a love story. I think you are so of the land and love the land and the people and the culture and the history and the animals. And it booms out of the book, and it caught me. I was just inspired as a person who loves the land and farming in general. It's in me. And my father's my hero, by the way, you know, and I just can't get away from it. I wish he wasn't, because I argue with him all day, every day. But here I am. And I would just wanted to talk about your genuine love of it and being able to spread the word, that inspiration, more than information. There's loads of information. You have a phone, you've got fields, you can ask a million questions, but to inspire people and to get them going. If we're going to spread the word on this, we're going to have to get people a little bit excited about the nerdy stuff for the soul. That's a wonderful story. And was it something that you realised that you're just absolutely in love with the whole thing?
Yeah, and if I'm really honest, why do anything unless you love it? I'm very all or nothing. I commit my whole life to the things I love, 3 or 4 things, and I'm very disinterested in all the other things.
No nonsense.
And that's the choice we have. And I personally believe, I think this applies to the film I watched with Clive in, it applies to Albert Camus, it applies to the people I've been listening to today. Why should we listen to anybody unless they're all in on what they're talking about? They believe it. Like, amongst your joking, the truest thing I've heard you say today was that your hero was your dad. Took you 2 seconds today, and I thought, oh, that's the truest thing you said today. I believe you absolutely implicitly from the minute it came out of your mouth. When Clive was talking about those trees and the changes to your farm 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was on that film, I believe that this is a gentleman that's really into this.
Gentleman. Oh.
And I mean, that's a compliment. No, I think if you're going to tell stories, you're going to ask anybody to trust you, listen to you, you better damn well believe what you're doing, and you better well have lived it, I think. And
credibility.
It's credibility, and it's also enthusiasm, isn't it? You can convince people even of terrible ideas if you believe them very powerfully.
That's one of my words on my list, enthusiasm. Because I was at I actually said, my name is Rob Coleman, I'm from Cork, if you didn't know already. And Base Ireland is a discussion group in the south, and I got involved in it, and it changed my farming life. And I was at a conference, Dairy Gold, a local milk supplier, and there was a Tagus man saying, just be careful, it was minimum tillage was the subject, with this stuff. Too much enthusiasm and too much excitement, you know. And I was like, no! Do nothing without and you're done. Like that I am seeing in all your talks, like passion and enthusiasm and excitement. And I think you're allowed to have that, and you're allowed to be a proud farmer, because farming is getting slated, and it's okay in society to be anti-farming. Fuck that. We need to sort of tell our story better. We need to stand up, and I think we've got two great examples here of people you can be proud of. Clive, do you think you've a pride in the farming and your story is transparent and anybody can say anything about it and you'll stand up and answer the questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There are other attributes as well as enthusiasm and pride. There's modesty.
100%.
Which you've never heard of, I know, but
I'm going to pay for that question.
Clive manifests beautifully. Somebody who doesn't have a big opinion of himself or doesn't project one, who's very modest, but that makes him all the more endearing, and I believe 100%. Him even more when he talks about things. So you don't have to be... I'm slightly pretending because I'm a professional. You don't have to be super confident and super project. You can be a nice person. You could. I don't mean to patronize you in any way, shape, or form. It's okay to be quieter and more modest and not think you're so great.
But walk the walk. This man has done it.
He walks the walk. His farm speaks for him.
Well, he's here, so let's hear from him. Listen.
I have a question for you, James. So I'm going to take your job just for a sec.
I was rather hoping you would. He's crap, isn't he? We got this.
I'll go to the bar. Where's my drink?
Preparation for this. This is kind of a literacy question, but I read English Pastoral again, and
who wrote that?
It's like a different man actually, but it's the same fella that wrote the other one. But but there's a lovely bit at the start, and I suppose it's the beauty of writing, you know, where you're speaking about being in your granddad's tractor and having the impression of a spanner on your arse because you're junking up and down in the back of the seat, and it kind of transported me right back to early 80s, where I was doing exactly the same thing, and it was such a common everything. Everybody did that, yep. And I just thought it was such a powerful. I know it was totally genuine, but it was such a powerful literary technique, and I was going, Jesus, how does he remember all those tiny details? And like you spoke about what the sky looked like on the same day, and all that kind of stuff, and there was a flock of birds flew off, and like, is your nostalgic memory like hyper?
I think that's a really good question. I'm surprised. I knew it would be. Do you want to know something funny about the kid in the back of that tractor? That kid in the back of the tractor believes that if you look at this, I'd read a few books I loved. I'd read The Animals of Farthingwood and some other things. Right? They're the books that some of us would have read in the 1980s. And there's a thing in my brain which twigged immediately that there's some humans spend their life looking at things and then they put them into words in books later. And it has a significance and people like you for doing it. And I can clearly remember being in the back of that tractor, which is why I went there for the start of the book. I can remember watching the seagulls and the crows and thinking, this is a bit like the books I'm reading. Like I could make this a book someday. Like, I don't know.
How old were you?
Like 7, 8, 9 years old. That probably makes me a very weird 7, 8, 9-year-old. I haven't got a kid.
We like weird people.
Maybe
here.
we all.
You're allowed to be weird.
But I have met loads of writers since, and like completely different people from different backgrounds, and they also have somewhere along the line decided that maybe you were put here as the recorder. You're like the human wordy video camera.
Because like I thought it was like I'd imagine the process of writing it fired up nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like it became, but it made, I thought it was really interesting listening to it again and going, this is like a really lazy way for me to hark back, because he's done all the hard work writing it. And everything he says, like, oh, that, you know, it keeps on sparking.
But also, if we're like betraying the trade secrets, if you're a writer and you're trying to tell a story about your life and you're, whatever you are, like we're talking about a farmer writer, but it could be anything, if you're any good at it, the unwritten question you're trying to answer technically is, how will I connect to as many possible people as I can, right? So I work out, forgive me if this is boring to anyone, but
Go for it.
I work out with the shepherd's life that most people don't care about sheep, right? I'll tell you why you should care culturally about sheep, but that isn't what's going to get you. What's going to get you is the stuff that you can relate to. So I'm really, really clinically going after it. I'm like, well, farm kids sat in the back of a tractor. I know they'll all remember that. But at the start of the shepherd's life, I start off in a classroom being bored with a teacher who doesn't respect me and with the kid next door who's...
We've been there. We've all been there.
Everybody's been there. So technically, my job as a writer is to go, where do I bring you in? I'll go to the thing with not the lowest common denominator, but the widest common denominator, and I'll take you with me. I'll go, were you ever like me? Because if you were ever like me, take the first step. And if you take the first step, I'll do something to make you take the second step, and then the third step, and the fourth step. But I've got to get you. And there are some brilliant technical books that many of us should read, and some of them are for sale here today, that tell you how to do technical farming things. But that's a different thing. That's
not your book. Your book isn't.
No, that's like a proper. A proper storyteller is trying to do those things. I'm deliberately trying to go into Clive's brain and go, do you remember being bored at school? Do you remember having spanners under your ass? Okay, we're the same. Come with me. I'll tell you. I'll whisper a secret into your ear. That's what we're trying to do. Sorry, I love you said it twice today. You said, I don't mean to make this all about me, but you said it felt like I was a different guy in the books. I had this really astute old lady came to me in a book queue recently, and she said, I've read all your books as they came out. And she said, I feel like I'm growing up with you, and with each book, you're becoming a different person. And some people might be offended by that. I'm actually highly complimented. The whole point of any voyage of life and self-discovery and writing and creativity for me is to become another person, not to lose all of your essence.
You mean to evolve?
To evolve.
To learn?
And if that lady sensed that I was evolving and it was helping her to evolve, and we were going along this journey together through the medium of a book, then I am highly flattered, and I love the idea I might be a different person 5 years later than the first book. And then the last one I just wrote, I'm really a different person. I'm an older person who's starting to realize the limitations of all my shticks.
And you're okay with that?
I'm trying to be okay with it, and I'm trying to grow up, trying to evolve and be somebody else.
Grow up. It's a trap. Stay young. And I think everybody here is quite young at heart. I think there's a kind of you can be very serious and intense about your farming, but something that's great, I would claim it in our culture in Ireland, but you definitely have it in Spain, James, is there's a kind of a disarming kind of humility about it, and you're not afraid to take the piss out of yourself, and you're not afraid to talk about your mistakes. The ego sort of isn't as front and center in some of this stuff, I mean, Regenerative or whatever you want to call this, versus some of the traditional places.
The great farming commentator John Wayne once said,
All right, partner.
John Wayne once said in one of his movies that you can't be a complete idiot if you work with cows. They'll knock it out of you. And I think there's a degree of truth to it. It's humbling, isn't it? Like I've had moments in my book world when it went great. It went better than great. And then I'll get up the next morning and there's a message from Derek Wilson, my next door neighbour, saying, your fucking cows are out. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that word.
Are we allowed to swear?
Sorry, not swearing. Your flipping cows are out. You might be a smart at that at this book game, but if you shut your gates, you get on a
down
big
to earth straight away.
And you're just like, all right, let's keep it like that. There's no big shots.
That's a good thing.
That's a good.
Yeah.
But Clive, I want to know about your work, because I only knew you through some of those films. I knew you through the agroforestry. I knew you as this slightly maverick, free-thinking farmer that was willing to do the things that some of my mates wouldn't be willing to do. But what's your other thing? What's your creative endeavors, passions? Because I didn't know, but I do a little bit now. But tell us.
Yeah. So I when you asked your question earlier, who loved their farm, I didn't put my hand up because I had no interest in farming at all when I grew up. And I went to art college and I studied textile design. So I'm in the fashion industry, really. And
You can tell just by looking at both of us
yeah,
that
yeah.
we're somehow connected to the fashion.
Cutting edge shit here. So forecasting, that's what they call it. We're way ahead. Like 3 seasons, everybody's going to be wearing this.
Blue shirts.
You're not appreciated in your own time.
But no, essentially, I went to art college to do art. So I'm a painter as well. Yeah. But actually, it was quite interesting. I went to do painting, and I didn't like what was happening in the painting department. So it's classic Clive style. I decided not to do it, and I did textiles instead. And it was actually fantastic because it was a design course, and it was in the fashion department of the college. And so everything was deadlines, everything was on a short turnaround, and everything was design-based. So I learned the design process, and like absolutely, that's what made the farm happen. Because when I moved back to the farm, I painted full-time painter for years, and then
Like painter or decorator, or like
Painting sheds or painting
yeah.
like canvas?
I used to thin down the
Proper
paint
painter.
with diesel, so it was a great, great money spinner.
Painting diesel across the border?
We're horrible because we can all tell he's really a good painter.
So, the Celtic tiger in the south. Did that happen up here? So there was loads of money, and I was able to live off being an artist, and it was brilliant. I had a great time. But the farm was kind of there, and it was kind of fumbling along, and I was mad to get at it. And when the recession hit, I just flipped my whole life, and I kind of parked the art for a while. I was continuing to paint. I had shows every year and stuff, but I put all my energy and focus into the farm. And I just wanted to redesign and fix everything, and that's essentially what happened. And everything that was annoying me, I redesigned it, and it was through the design process. Because I actually listening to your talk was mad, because all our outcomes were kind of the same, and all the context, everything we wanted to do was like, yeah, that's my list as well, and it was almost identical. But we came at it at completely different angles and arrived at the same place. And it was like that could be my talk.
Yeah.
Sideways, and it was just everything that annoyed me. I was like, yeah, there has to be a better way to do that.
Can I ask you a question, which is, when you're at art college and you don't do what you're meant to do, you go along the corridor, you do textiles. When you're a farmer and you don't like it how it is and you want to do something else, there's something in, you called it being Clive, didn't you, or like typical Clive style, you made a joke out of it. There's something in lots of us that doesn't go along the corridor to do textiles, or doesn't dare change the farm. Where's this inner strength in Clive come from? Have you got like a strong mum, or you have some heroes that are different, or if you have to look at that, where's the bit of you, or are you just wired differently? Where's the bit of you that isn't worried at people laughing at you for cows in trees and?
Or the neighbours, what the neighbours think.
Yeah.
Hard question.
He doesn't
give a shit.
Yeah.
I asked Clive before he came up about, having a chat to see what we talk about. Wing it. We'll just fucking wing it, he says,
But also,
care.
I give my nerdy answer about who my hero was. Who's your hero?
Oh, Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton.
9 to 5.
She's a hell of a hero. Go on.
No, didn't see that coming, did you? Tell us about Dolly Parton.
Hey, tell you what, I grew up thinking Dolly Parton was a joke. My Uncle Gordon put her on in the farm truck. This is like a strange lady with her hair and the boobs. This is not a serious person. Quite nice songs. Oh boy, have I ever been more wrong about anything. This is one of the
Strength
great,
of character.
clever, strong characters who flips everything on its head. If you haven't seen it, there's like a HBO documentary about her life. Oh, if you're not convinced that Dolly Parton's a major cultural figure who you should admire, go and watch that program. She
Clive,
is
how was she
awesome.
fundamental in your development? What has happened here?
Well,
Which bit of Dolly did you like?
Stop it now. Is this being recorded? I should have asked at the start. I think it might be.
yeah, the whole lot.
But why Dolly? Why Dolly for you? What's she to you?
Yeah, similar. I suppose I listened to a podcast documentary with her, and I was like, everything she's saying, I agree with. Like, and she's so clever. Like, she had social media sewn up before it ever happened, and not in a, I don't mean that in a flippant way, but like if I've never been to a Dolly Parton gig. I do quite like her music, but that's not why I like her. I think she's a brilliant person. And I think if you go to her gigs, you'll get like redneck truckers, a whole gay pride element. You get like loads of random people who love Dolly Parton. And it's because she's never pissed anybody off. And she finds common ground in everything. And I think that's actually what we need to do as farmers.
And it's not dumb blonde look, to quote the song.
No,
It's clever.
it's really clever.
She worked out a long time ago. She didn't look like that. She made herself look like that. They said she's a dumb blonde. She writes one of her great songs. So just because I'm blonde, don't call me dumb. Like I'm nobody's
Turns
fool.
it around and
she turns the thing around and sells
empowers
you a
herself.
record.
Yeah.
But even as she's worked through, like the music industry is horrendous to navigate as a personality, and she's navigated that so beautifully. And like it's a bit of a random thing but I just think she nails so much, and it's the common ground bit that's so cool. Like that she can bring such polar opposites together and go, oh yeah, I like that.
So kids, if you want to learn how to be a great human, watch the Dolly Parton HBO thing. Read a bit of Albert Camus.
You didn't see this coming, did you? No, now we're getting into the good stuff, right?
And try and beat your dad. If we could get that nailed, I think we've got some models.
I have an insight into this, and that is about being your true self. That I think that the two men we have in front of us now are possibly, being their genuine selves and are unapologetic about it. And somewhere in there is a farming system that is how you are. Are you brave enough to be who you want to be and to change course when it's not right? Like James said, some people just do the same course and they say, oh, well, I better not change, just in case. Is there a bravery needed? And I want to talk about, you use the word creativity. Is creativity and something that you consciously decide or something you just have for your farming system changes? And it also has parallels into both of you in your crafts.
I think Clive's braver than me. There are different kinds of people that do things at different speed. I do, like when you say you don't give a shit, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like, I'll go in the house and I'll be like, these farm guys, these old farmers that are coming to our house today, they're not going to like me. They're going to think this is wrong. Like, I really wish I was the kind of person that went, I don't give it. Like, not that you said it in that way, but I don't care. And I kind of do. And to be honest, I do an art form or a sort of creative form. You know that thing I'm talking about, how do I connect with as many people as possible? That does require me to think about what people care about and want. So maybe I've used that weakness or that care or that desire to please. But I don't think I would, by personality type, would be an innovator.
Really?
I think some of the, if you look at Richard Perkins, Greg Judy, Joel Salatin.
Would you think you're kind of followers of them?
I
Early adopters?
I think I'm second wave and slightly more cowardly.
Why do you not want to be on a plane with Richard?
I think those
that
people.
an in-joke?
I think all of those people I've just mentioned, and I mean it as a semi-compliment, are slightly socially awkward, slightly more intense than your average man, woman, and don't care. And I think maybe to be an outlier and an innovator and to go against the grain or to do it first, you maybe have to care more what other people care less what other people think. And I'm okay with being next wave down, and I'll take all that they've worked out and learned, and
People have their place in the whole
people have
system.
their place in the ecosystem, and it's okay.
Have you?
I don't think it's that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respectfully disagree.
I also like people that disagree with me. Go on.
But I think it's the medium you're operating in.
Okay.
Like you've said, you need to empathize, or you need people to like it to do your craft. I had a recent experience where painting is kind of a handy one to hide behind, because you can do the paintings, you shag them into a gallery and disappear. I hate openings, don't do any of that. But that's probably because I do care what people think. Or you put yourself out there and you're like, I'm really vulnerable now. Yeah. And I did a design, just to keep myself busy in the last while. I've been doing some design work. And I did a design proposal to it, like a board of a company, and that was the hardest thing I ever did, because I really needed them to like what I did, and I did care then. So maybe it's maybe it's the medium more than the person.
Maybe.
You know.
And like, I hope you don't mind me saying, my wife Helen.
Microphone.
Sorry. So my wife Helen doesn't care what the guys down the pub think. Doesn't care what my neighbours think. Doesn't care what my dad's friends.
Great leveler.
That's a real help. To have that person on your shoulder going, "What are you anxious about that for?"
You need to hear that.
Yeah, like so there isn't just an ecosystem in the wider sense. It often helps to be with somebody that's different from you in a business or in a team or in a marriage.
Different perspective.
Different perspective. The person that and I'm wildly up and down and sort of manic and excitable and rush at things. And Helen is steadier, but not in a derogatory way. Is way more dependable.
Yeah.
Is way less.
Does that allow you to be more yourself then? That it still works out?
I think if you're building a team, or a marriage, it might not be a bad idea to pair somebody like me with somebody like Helen. It becomes more functional, more sensible, more practical. I think two people like me would be an absolute bloody nightmare.
So can I ask you, farming-wise? Yeah. And I think what's been done here is exceptional. And I think for me, it's inspiring and it's also profitable, which I think it has to be. And it's been demonstrated that it bloody well is. If you lose that argument, you lose the other words. Could it have been done without Shelley and Ellen? Like, how fundamental part of that is, and because you can't do it alone, and that's true maybe of a partner and other people around you, and the team will say, or maybe is it, you know, for your enterprises to get where you are, is it a team effort or is it very much all about the man himself?
Go first, Clive.
Hard question.
Okay. So mine's really easy. The answer is a very clear no. None of it happens without Helen. I'm absolutely failing at everything until I get with Helen when I'm 19, 20 years old. I wouldn't have gone to university without Helen telling me to grow up and stop being a jerk and go back to school at nights. I wouldn't have dared go against the way my family thought to do some of the things I've done without Helen by my side. I'd have bottled it multiple times along the way if I didn't have somebody steady by my side going, hold tight, we can do this. We can do this. I wouldn't have put in all the dull, stressy years where we had a big mortgage and I didn't do a job I loved. I'd have despaired. I'd have given up on the writing thing long before I did. I won't bore you with all the details, but there's absolutely no James Rebanks that you may or may not like or admire right now on a stage or doing books without that. And one of the great joys of my life is having been enabled by another person in a very selfless way that I can never pay back. One of the best things that happened to us a few years ago was when we began to be aware of it. Like, oh, there's a huge imbalance here, and I haven't really helped you in the way that you've helped me. And then Helen was able to write her book, and I'm probably more proud of Helen's book, because I'm like, not only did we team together and you bigged me up to do some stuff, those two kids from farms in the middle of nowhere helped each other, and we can not only do my thing, but you can show everybody how cool you are as well, and that...
you got your chance to enable her.
It's so much cooler seeing the person you love fulfilled and do their thing than it is yourself. It's always a little bit embarrassing.
I want to give him a round of applause for that.
So.
Oh, she's gone. She's gone. She's gone. Well done. Fair play. Clive, you know, your relationship between cows and farming and family. I look at success. I have down here, what's the measure of success? I mean, how many cows was mentioned earlier on? How many acres with us? How many tons an acre? This is the culture of farming. How good are you? How many, you know, production. It was all wired into people in the 70s and 80s and the expansion. And trying to undo some of that into how much time off do you take? How you know, profit, you know, turnover is absolute vanity. It's the sanity of profit. And I think that when I said to Clive about, you know, Jesus, you know, are you busy? You know, what's it like? You know, because I'm running, I'm time poor. How could I be a wealthy man when I have no time? He said, I do nothing. And I was like, you're fucking so successful. So does that feed your family life? And does it, for yourself, Shelley, like, is this kind of one of the big draws?
Hang on, you big excitable bugger. You haven't had a chance to say nice things about your wife. Or partner.
It's his turn to answer the question.
Answer the question I had to answer that my wife's crying about. Come on.
She's not here, so...
Come on, we'll tell him.
Being recorded.
If you say something nice, it'll be passed on, I promise.
It's similar in a different way, definitely. Yeah, it's just Shelley does loads of. She's an incredibly smart lady, and she does loads of other stuff. And it's like we almost live separate. Like she's no involvement really in the farm, but it's kind of this subtle leveling. Like the leveling thing is really cool. I like that.
Is she the same kind of personality type, but you are a very different type of person?
Yeah, I think, no, she's quite different, yeah. She's a lot smarter.
Always marry somebody smarter than you. Most of the married men in this room.
Top tip,
know this.
top tip.
Top tip.
Good advice. No, yeah.
So yeah, like that, great at subtly reining you in if you're being silly.
I have to tell you, we did a thing in Canada a couple of years ago. I had to speak at this Canadian Cattlemen's Association thing. I couldn't resist. I said, we were talking about husbands and wives and how farmers help each other. And I said, put your hands up if you're more intelligent than your wife. And every man in the room, except for one, went, not doing that. And one guy at the back went,
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God.
and you got this utterly despairing wife going,
She was used to it, like. She knew who she had.
yeah. She's married to the stupidest man in the room and knew it.
She's been conditioned for years.
So that,
Sorry, I didn't let you ask the second question.
well, no, I think to be fair, like what I'm trying to get towards here is that when somebody goes on the journey and goes about changing, because people are slow to change and people are very funny about change. And I think sometimes, I mean, the inspiration we've talked about, and it has been inspiring to be here and to listen to you guys. And then there's the knowledge and the information. We need that, absolutely. But then there's the kind of the tough days. You said you got great support from your wife, like a rock, to say you can do this, believe in yourself. Because a great farmer down our way, conventional farmer in a discussion group, actually, my dad was in a discussion group with him, and I'm in a discussion group with his son, and he said, you either think you can do it or you can't do it. You'll prove yourself right in either case. So your wife, Helen, has told you that you can do it, and you believe her, and then you go and do it. But without that, you would have believed maybe you couldn't. So somewhere in the culture of helping these people to get on their own journey and have courage, and maybe to speak about fear, people who tell you can't. You know what I mean?
It may not be everybody's belief, this, but in our house, Helen and I's sort of shared belief is that life's a team sport and that individuals can do remarkable things, but we believe, and you don't have to agree with us, I think it's fair to say we both believe that we're way more, I'm definitely more powerful, but I hope together we're a stronger unit. We can do stuff we can't do on our own.
It's greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, it's greater than the sum of its parts. And that doesn't have to be everybody's sort of modus operandi, how they operate. Lots of people would prefer to be more isolated and individualistic. For me, I feel like everything good in my life was built out of that teaming up. So
Can I ask
I'm not
another?
going for a second cuddle from my wife on that, but yeah.
Can I ask a sticky question? Because I'm gonna.
No.
I want to know about Clive. Tell us a horror story. Tell us about a bad day on the farm, because I've had them, and and even James, when you're talking about your fear and your worries, it helps me because I go, Jesus, I've been there, and it's great that you'll be honest and say that, and it's enabling for anybody to say, oh, hard times. You didn't just walk on and just be at all, and that tough day and how you overcame it and how you went again, even though maybe there have been no tough days. Do you know, it's something that went wrong farming wise that you sort of had to get past. Is that's a nice difficult one now.
There was definitely a period, I don't have a day in mind, but there was definitely a period when James was talking there, and in the books, I suppose, it kind of triggered, where I reckoned I could outwork the problems at the start. When I moved back and I was trying to figure shit out, and I was trying to get rid of the dairy cows, and there was a guy who worked on the farm, and there was a load of kind of legacy there. I had to negotiate. It was more of a people problem than anything else. But
How old were you at that point?
I was just out of college, so
24.
less than that.
And you're dealing with an older guy who's part of the thing, has worked there, has got very fixed ideas that might not be what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So common.
So the quick history is when my grandfather died, my granny hired this guy, Mickey, and he was brilliant. You know, he ran her farm kind of, and totally ran her farm.
It was a dairy farm at that point.
It was a dairy farm, yeah. And then when I was young, my father died. I was 6, and he ran the farm then until I took it over. So it was what he did for us was incredible, but we really couldn't get on either. Yeah. So it was this weird thing of I felt a huge debt to him, but we just didn't gel, and it was really tough. So we tolerated each other for years, and he didn't want to go away, which was the problem. and I wanted to do loads of stuff, and like
I think a lot of people's version of that would be
with
with the dad.
Yeah, totally.
Mickey's
Yeah,
the same thing, right? A person
Yeah.
with a strong view of what's happening,
Convention,
part of the furniture, not-
tradition.
yeah.
and you've got to go. I have to be my own self, and it's
Totally.
different from your thing.
Totally.
And this is going to hurt.
Nearly a battle of wills.
This is going to hurt both of us.
Yeah.
And I can't do anything about it. Is that the?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. But yeah, look, it kind of petered out in the end. It was
Did
fine.
you poison him? No, sorry, I should have said that.
Well, I was talking yesterday about our
Mickey was great. We
the
killed him.
capacity that organic farmers have to dispose of bodies is incredible. And nobody talks about the power of compost in this way, but
Where else would you get it, lads? You didn't expect that now either. Dolly Parton to decomposing bodies in Northern Ireland.
I reckon there's probably no DNA there.
But stepping half a step back from the joke, it is possible to have two beliefs, isn't it? That Mickey's an honourable, good man that's done great things for your family, and oh shit, I have to be a man and I have to do this different, and Mickey's not going to like it.
Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
They're not
You can have
mutually
both, yeah.
exclusive. And lots of us would have that with dads and granddads, wouldn't we? It doesn't. There's no magic solution, is there?
We've got there. The next thing it says is "our lads." Now, in my context, it's our lad, my dad. For anybody's parents, mother or father, female, friend, like just for me, it is my old. That part of the journey doesn't get spoken about a lot because we'd have nothing on. From my context, we'd have nothing on for him. What that man did, reared the five of us, educated us all through the ups and downs of all the madness of farming through the 80s and the 90s and everything.
Your dad educated you.
Well, he paid for our education anyway. and yes, he did. I would know 90% of my farming from him. Being uneducated and coming across, I get it. Yeah. You need a thick skin up here. No, it really is something that it helped me when I heard you speak about it.
Yep.
In your book. And your granddad as well was huge. And I just think that if we could give any young person a little bit of craft maybe about how to go around the mountain, not through it, or maybe there's a point where you have to stand your ground where you spoke about helping out, then realizing you could do as much and actually throttling back a little bit not to embarrass your granddad. And that sort of craft around, a bit like how you handled the Mickey situation, about teasing your way through a personal personality thing.
So the question, forgive me, Clive. The question becomes, grown up, older Clive now, if you could go back and tell 20-year-old
My next
Clive,
question.
if you could go back and tell 20-year-old Clive how to deal with the Mickey thing, is there anything you know now that would have made it better, or was it just a crap hand and you got to go through it?
Yeah, no, it's just something that had to be navigated.
So there you go, kids.
I tell you what, James, it's an honest answer to the question, and fair play, lads, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that isn't a perfect story. That was tough, and I had to get through it, and I'm out the other side of it, and here I am, with the scars and all, and maybe you are where you are because of the things you went through to get there.
I went through some tough times with my dad. My dad was a tough old bugger and dealt with the world
Wanna
in
talk
tough
about
old
this?
ways, and very tough at times. And yet, we came through it. I think maybe what I'd say to anybody young that might be in that situation now, struggling with an older dad or mum or something that's a blocker in a way, is we came through it. The relationship I had with my dad when he died, when I was 40, was profoundly different from what it was when I was 20. And one of the great joys of my life is I wanted to write The Shepherd's Life when I was 20 years old, and it would have been an absolute hatchet job on my dad. I'd have written
been angry at the time.
I'd have written the angry young man book about the dad who's a jerk who can't see how he's actually quite clever, thanks. Like, give me the reins. And I'm bloody glad that the world didn't let me write that book for 20 years, and I'm really glad that I finished it. I'm not glad he had cancer, but I'm very glad that I got to finish it and say nice things about him in his final months. And he read it, and I don't know, like just very quickly. So I gave him the
No, quickly. We're here for the night. Come on,
Like,
relax. Get a drink. Is the bar
I
open?
gave my dad the proof
Settle
of
in.
this book, right? Some people in publishing think I'm a writer. They think I can publish a book.
Your dad's Tom, is it?
The dad's Tom. He's slowly dying of cancer. I'm not sure how long it's going to last with it, 3 weeks or 3 months. I'm like, a lot of this book's about my dad. Like, if he reads this and thinks this is crap, that's not the best send-off from your son, is it? Feeling real awkwardness about it. And actually, some of the bits that people like the most in that book are like letters to my dad, where I say what his life meant and why I respected it. So it forced me to reckon with everything we'd gone through and come to an ending. And I dropped this book off, leave it a couple of days, because my dad was not a book-reading fellow, could hardly spell, didn't read books. And I go, I go back and I say, well, what do you think? And he said, the ending, and the last two lines of the afterwards say, thank you, Dad, I respect and love you. And he said, the ending's a bit soppy, innit? and he winked at me, and the wink said a million words. The wink said, you little shit, you were going to do me over in this book in the past, and I know you've made me the hero of the book because I'm dying, and because we're all right now. And anyway, a couple of days later, he was in bed, and I went to him, and I did say, I said, are you and me all right? And he said, you and me are grand. Shook my hand. And that's one of the last conversations I had with my dad. And you're like, oh, how bloody lucky am I? I got to write a 200-page letter to my dad, telling a man why I respected him and loved him. That, yes, we both know we went through some rough, horrible stuff.
Maybe, James, there's no other way to get there. Maybe you have to go through that.
I guess what I'm trying to say to anyone else going through that, just because it's not very nice doesn't mean it isn't important. It doesn't mean there's a thing on the other side. Doesn't mean you won't look back on and love the person. I didn't think everything about my dad was perfect. I still don't, or my granddad. But do I love the fact that I worked with him for 9 years? Good, bad, indifferent, the whole blooming package. Yeah, I do.
When you guys were dehydrated that day and you ran out of water, and you just kept going and kept going and kept. Remember, your
my dad's answer to everything was just work hard and we'll win.
And to be fair, with anybody's journey and anything, I don't think you get anywhere in life without a graft. That you can put something together in your life that you could lean back on later without a lot of hard work. Book writing or farming or anything.
One of my dad's other catchphrases is whatever you do, you will have to work at it, son. Like, you may as well wrap your head around it. Now, that can become an heroic version of work, and we can end up with
about slavery, like just work.
Slavery. But there's also a bit of truth. Helen would be crossing me because she thinks we should all live more balanced lives.
Helen's not crossed at you. She was teary-eyed there a minute ago. You're good.
But it's not the worst lesson to give a young person, which is whatever you focus on, you just might have to focus on this thing and give it some serious frigging effort. That's not the worst thing for your dad to do.
Can I say something about that? When I think about hard work, and I think there's like a graft, and there's like, I have to. But actually, from the things I've done in my life, the more I put into something, the more I got back out of it. The reason the gold medal is worth so much isn't because it's gold, it's because what you had to do to get the bloody thing. And that if you never had it, you are that person because of the things you went through, no more than you can be on these stages and people say, oh my God, this is great. The things you went through to get where you are now, nearly the suffering is important and it's meaningful. And whether that's the suffering in a relationship with you're exactly what you're speaking about, very close to your heart, delicate stuff, or with the farming system, or standing up in the pub and saying I'm different, or those things are they're difficult, but they're important, and do them anyway. And
you don't have to answer this, Clive, but I want to ask, so I'll ask and you can use your own judgment. Right. So you lost your dad at 6, and I feel so sad for you, but it's a long time ago, I guess. There's obviously Mickey there as a kind of influence on how you do the farm. Did you get stories or values from your dad about what kind of guy he was, what kind of worldview he had that have helped you along the way? Because someone could die, but their spirit can carry on, kind of other ideas.
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, that has.
It's the best question of the evening, I'd say, is it?
Yeah.
Tell us about your dad and how that helps you going forward.
Well, it's all kind of ethereal stuff. Like, when you're in the pub and some random old fella comes up, it's usually about my granddad, actually.
What was his name?
My granddad was, he was Ned, and then my dad was Ted. So,
were you not called Ned or Ted?
I called my son Ted.
I love it.
You should have been Ted.
Yeah. Well, my middle name is Edward. But yeah, it's cool. Obviously, it's hard to know because people, there's kind of the young fella lost his dad when he was small and they're going to be nice and everything else. But there's loads of mad stories. No more than your situation. Your granddad was a completely different character, and my granddad seemed to be a total nut job. Like there's all these stories about because he had gone to Australia when he was young.
Was he sent on a ship?
I think he was 16. Yeah.
Did he have a choice when he went?
He was in the army. I'm not really sure.
Whose army was that?
Again, I think it was the British Army. I don't know.
Good man.
It's really hard to get facts because nobody knows because my father's family kind of just petered out. So I don't have a lot of the info. But Yeah, I think he was in the Irish Horse, which is a Northern Irish regiment of the British Army. So, from what I can decipher from the one photograph of his uniform, but he was only 16 or something, and there's loads of funny stories that you get from, like there was this. I dropped my son off to his friend's house, and this voice came from the back. He's going, "Are you young Bright?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." And he said, "Come in here for a minute." And he told me all these mad stories about.
Is this a neighbour or is this a local?
Yeah, just
older
a
man?
neighbour that I'd never met before. Like, and he knew my granddad really well, and he was only a kid at the time, and he said, "Oh, your granddad was like a legend," and I think it was because he was away and he came back. It was just like
Sort of a hero complex about returning soldier.
totally, yeah. And then, he had a really funny story about their bull had broken into the neighbour's field, and it was kind of a wicked bull, and nobody could get it out. And they rang Ned, and he came, and he'd learned to lasso.
Stop.
And he roped the bull and walked
Like a
it out
movie
of the field
star.
like John Wayne partly. And I'm sure it was a lot clumsier than that, but your man had this like misty-eyed view of him. It was brilliant. And
That's gold to hear that
that is
from your
gosh,
granddad.
right.
That's worth
I was
a million
$1
quid.
coming out. But yeah, and then I suppose my dad was an only child, and so he was following on from the legacy of this lunatic, and but he like his dad died actually. He was quite young as well, but he was 17 or something. So he took over the farm and had carte blanche. So
At 17.
yeah. So I think from the stories I can think he was fairly innovative. Like he was a progressive dairy farmer at the time.
It's in the blood.
Well, maybe. I think we had the first slatted tank. All the stuff I've got rid of.
That was his great achievement.
Yeah, we had the first.
But that does say that good farming practice and what that means has evolved an awful lot.
Totally, yeah.
And now what is a good farm is actually quite blurred lines about perfection and neat and tidy versus mess and sort of,
Yeah.
ecology.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is complete, the definition has evolved.
Even little things like we have a thurlock in our farm, and
What is a turlock?
a thurlock, I think
Lake?
they're unique to Wales and Ireland. Do you know what
Is it a little lake?
Do you not? Oh, cool.
Well, if James doesn't know, I don't feel so bad because
I suppose it's an Irish word. Loch is lake and thurlock. Anyway, it's a
Is it a
thurlock.
pond? Pond.
I don't know. I don't speak Irish. So
Because the lady knows what it is.
An English word for them is an ethereal pond. Like they fill seasonally when the water table rises, and then when it lowers.
Ephemeral pond, I think.
Ephemeral, yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's very impressive.
But I think geographically, thurlocks. Brendan Dunford will know this. Give him a mic there.
Yeah, or just shout, Brendan. He doesn't want to get involved.
I think. Yeah, they're
Seasonal
they're
lakes.
seasonal lake, but geologically they're unique to Ireland and Wales, aren't they? There's like loads of them in Ireland, and there's a few in Wales, and then worldwide they're slightly different. But yeah, they're seasonal lakes. So it's our main hayfield is a thurlock.
Right.
So in the summertime it's bone dry and it's massively diverse. It's beautiful, like. And in the wintertime it's a lake. So we have a little boat on it and stuff.
Yeah.
And very cool. But it was limited what you could do with it. You could just meadow it. And Dad was down in Grange, which is like a Chagas research farm in the south. And
James, Chagas is our national research body.
Yep.
And if you want to have ryegrass and nitrogen and cows, that's where you go to learn all about it.
Yeah.
And they're very good at it. It's perfected at this point.
they had they were trialing electric fences.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll be able to graze my thurlock if I get electric fence. So he did battery electric fence, and we had a really funny neighbour called John Quigley, and he could for some reason he could hold an electric fence without getting a shock, whatever his body was.
Or he
made
was
up of.
getting
Rubber
shocked.
soles.
Yeah.
And he was tough as nails.
But he didn't even pulse, like.
Wow.
He didn't even pulse, so I don't know what.
Couldn't feel anything.
And he could do it up until he died recently. Like he used to show.
Is that how he died?
And maybe he had heart trouble.
Those two things must be completely unconnected.
Apart from that,
He did.
it was grand.
And,
What are we talking about now?
but he was down at this trial and holding on to the electric fence, and the Joggers boys were going round with their testers.
And Mr. Quigley found the best one because
Leaning on it, holding on to it.
Go on, I don't want to stop
That's just
you.
a random story.
Go on. So
I liked it.
it's not original to me, but I would say people that are brave enough to do new things somehow have to locate it in where they came from or their tribe. And what I think I just got, apart from a lovely, funny story and all the rest of it, was a dad who, little bits we know about him, was thinking new things, was trying new things, does that kind of help? Or somewhere in the back of your brain, maybe without thinking about it, helps?
I think the nicest thing Mickey ever said to me was, Shelley goes, "What was Ted like?" And he said, And
That was enough. You knew what that meant. High praise, Clive. High praise indeed.
From the same school as my dad. What do you think? It's all right.
And you knew, oh, jizz, he's in good form today.
Yeah.
What is that about not being able to tell the young people anything good?
God, I've got a challenge. I've gone very touchy-feely on this so far.
Go for it.
So you said your dad's your hero. Does your dad know you? Because I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I was.
Can't tell him that. Oh, he won't
Oh,
ever see
you
this.
just hold on with that male bullshit. Hold on a second.
I didn't start this,
When
did I?
when I sort of told my dad all that stuff about him that I respected and exactly why and tried to articulate it, I look back now as one of the great gifts of my life. I think because it completed the circle. And when I think about it, and I said to Helen the other day, I don't feel like there's any unfinished business with my dad. We're done. And I got that privilege, and you didn't get that privilege because you were too young. But your dad's still here, and you could tell him. So my challenge to you is...
Oh, no. Don't turn it around on me. I asked the questions, and I put you under pressure.
And you know what I'm thinking.
bring him live on stage.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
There's,
I'll tell you how that'll go. Well, it's raining. Yeah. Harding's at home. Grand. Right, so.
well, you could do the boy jokes, but...
I'm not joking about any of this because I genuinely am fascinated by it. And I am joking as well because I think to talk about these very, very big issues, to have a light-hearted conversation with good crack is very important. It's our Irish way of dealing with things. It's just to make sure we have a bit of a laugh so we don't all get too emotional and nobody tears up except Helen.
In our house, it would go like this. Dad, I love you. By the way, I also think you're wrong about bloody everything.
Yeah. And you told me that
You could make a joke out.
your son is doing that to you now. And I said to you, history repeats itself over and over and over, which you did that to your dad at one time as well.
But
You've taught him to think for himself, and there was a part of you who was a little bit proud of that.
hang on, but we're not slaves to history, and we're not slaves to what our dads and grandfathers were. So we'll not get it all right, but we can try and be better. Helen's taught me this. We can try and be better men. We can cuddle our lads. We can teach our lads to be caring as well as tough. We can say things that people have never said in our family. And I think I'm pushing that there's some sense in that. Clive will never have the luxury. I got pushed into it and had to grow a pair. Because
You're talking very real there, and I appreciate it.
We're not here for long, are we?
Maybe
Your
we
dad
might
vanish
realise.
someday.
My dad is 78 and he works harder than everybody else I know. And part of why I do what I do, and I know that you can trace your family farming 30 generations or even further if there was record. Like you, I think, feel where you're from and know where you're from. And it's a great anchor in life to say, I'm farming in Cumbria and I bloody love it. And I fucking am about the Lake District is my home and it's where my people are from. And I think that is a great start in life. It's a great foundation. It's like it gives you a kind of a sense of where you're coming from. And you've taken that, traditions and history, and your interest in history is phenomenal. And you've come up with your own version. What I would say about my farm at home is, well, we'd have nothing only for him. I have fierce respect from what came before the five of us came along. But if it's not going my way, it's not going anywhere. And we have such a succession problem. And I want to take it in this direction in farming. We're losing the young people. We're losing the battle. It's okay in society to be anti-farming. How is that bloody possible? Because I want to be a proud farmer and I want to tell a good story. And then some of the stories here, geez, they'd inspire anybody. But how is that happening and how has we lost that battle? And I think that's part of why we're losing the young people. That, I think society has moved on financially and we're kind of left behind a little bit. But your your great young people and the great girls and boys who come out of university with a great work ethic from the farm and great brains in their heads, they have to make a financial compromise to come farming. So it needs to be deeper, meaningful. And I always feel that you had that you were so delighted coming home from university saying, what did you, in the car, did you roar? And he went, I'm home, sort of thing. And I was thinking, God, it's great that you are so connected to it. And maybe the meaning and the connection to who we are and where we're from. And I think everybody has a touch of it in different degrees. Even the man today on the panel who loved his cows and was making money, like he's a farmer too, you know. And I think that would be something that we should realise is very important to us. And if we could instill it and stimulate it and don't be forcing people into it, that they should maybe come to it from a place of enjoyment.
I find it hard to, but you know when I asked that question when I did my talk today, I said, who's happy with how much money they're making? And there was 5 or 6 hands went up and 2 of them were couples. Yeah, and you're like, what is the offer? I think we've got to be really, really, which is why I admire people who are prepared to rethink the whole damn thing and make a different model if it works. What are we offering them? Are we offering them a life of loyal slog to lose money? Or are we going to do everything in our power to rethink and build something that's a viable future?
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
You said everything in our power. I think that there's very little whinging at these things. I'd go to a few of these. There's a soil dependence event down the south by Base Ireland on the 4th of July. It's the same. Groundswell, to be fair, is a freaking credit to everybody who's involved. That when you're empowering and you're taking responsibility, you're not looking to whinge and blame the market and blame what you said, there's loads of reasons to change, but nobody changes. And when you're taking that power and you're saying, well, I will do it. I will change. I will. It's a kind of it's a great thing, but it's also quite a scary thing. And why do people shy away from that and stay docile and stay in the system? If you get where I'm going, where maybe the farmers are being farmed in conventional, and it's a hard time to be a farmer, and people are under pressure, and they've never worked harder for less, and they've never been busier, and there's a kind of a treadmill, whereas time here is abundant, and enjoyment. And you're shining, lads. You're living the life that you want. And I think that's missing from the mainstream. Is that a fair comment, Clive?
Yeah. I'm going to compliment Shelley now.
Woo!
That's...
And you should.
Well,
somebody film this. You might miss it.
No, it's the... Yeah, it was the family thing. It's cool. Because, like, there was a point during the transfer into what I'm doing now, there was a point, as I said, where I was, I can outwork this, you know, I can outdo this. And I wised up fairly quick because it just had to. But family life really brought everything into perspective. And when I did holistic management training, that was brilliant. That sorted, like I had a lot of this stuff kind of in my head, like I had... the bit where you have to change the bit between your ears was done. You know, I knew what I wanted. You know, I was open.
Compaction between your ears.
I was open to all the stuff I needed to do, and I was doing loads of it. And it was about consolidating it all, and it was holistic management that brought it all together, because I was able to organize it all and put it all in a framework and kind of really question my goals and stuff and manage my life a little bit better. And Shelley took none of the farming shit. She was like, no, we're going on holidays, like, you fucking...
What? Holidays? What are they?
Figure it out. Just figure it out. And I was like, okay, right.
Make it happen and find a way.
And in tandem with holistic management, it gave me, it shifted my priorities, which are very easily sucked up in farming. You know, you can very easily
I know.
Oh, I have to do this, like, I have to. But if you lay out your priorities properly...
Do you do that on a page?
Well, yeah.
I think that I need to go home and do that. I need to write it down, and it'll become real at some point if you do clarify.
Yeah.
Crystallize your thinking.
Like, we've been on holidays 3 times and we're going again.
In how long?
This year. Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
That's a successful man right there, I think.
It's cool. It's great. And, like, look, some of them were weddings we had to go to and shit like that. But
Matter. You left the farm.
He's backpedaling.
You left the farm.
And you lot made him feel bad for holidays, which we shouldn't do.
but I
And
left
that's the
farm.
culture.
I did leave
Are you
the
busy?
farm.
Are you working hard?
I
Are you
could
slaving? Oh, isn't it great? None of that. Leave
But
that nonsense after you.
I could plan to do that within the system I've designed. And I've designed the system that I get to live out the best family life I can. And that's what I want to do.
That's a worthy goal, and that is a
It's
fantastic
class,
goal.
Yeah,
And it'll be to your credit in the long run. It'll be actually to your kids' benefit mostly.
I hope so.
You get to spend time with them.
Unless
and
they
see
start writing books about me.
If you can pull it off, mate, crack on. That's all I'd say. Yeah, and I'm sure you could.
I love that our author here on the stage has got sheep marker all over the left hand. And I think that is just fabulous. Because, I mean, you're a farmer at heart, and there is writing, and they put, it's kind of, there's enough, we'll say, in any of the book for anybody to grab onto exactly what you said, and I think that's why it resonates and it touches, and the Dolly Parton thing is the same, that you'll touch some real humanity in people.
I'm almost at the place you're talking about. I want my farm to do the things I need. It has to do for my family. I'm struggling at the moment. With my sheep, which was my defining joy in my life, and then not cutting it in the same way as my cattle are on this new system and with my values.
Is that difficult to wrestle with that?
Have you tried running them together?
It's sort of, well, first question is, I'm embarrassed by it on one level. I'm like, oh my God, I was the world's greatest
As a proud sheep
evangelist
man.
for sheep, and I'm going to tell you I don't like sheep.
When the foot and mouth hit, it was 60 years of breathing were interrupted.
I've been all in
Can't
my whole
forget
life
about
on
that.
them, and I'm now faced with uncomfortable truths which aren't going to go away. I know they're not, and I'm in that stage before you do the radical thing where you think, am I going to do the radical thing? Am I a chicken? Am I going to tell
Can I
myself
say something
lies
about
to
this?
keep going with
That
this?
when you do something radical on your farm and you think about the past and you think about the people, I'm renovating a farmhouse and I took down the chimney with my hands and I was thinking of the men who built it, and it was really tough for me to do it. But I thought, I'm securing the future of this building for another 30 or 40 or 50 or 80 years. Yeah. And maybe the future of your farm needs this disruption to evolve.
I'll break it down for you. I'm so on top of the farm now in terms of my clinical thinking about it, I think. I know that if I got rid of 3/4 of my sheep and switched the livestock units over to my cattle, I heard you talking about how simple in a good way your system is and how well you smiled like it makes money and it's easy. Like, I know it's not simple as that. I know I'm about 50, my family's about 15 grand a year better off if I do it. I worked it out in my head, right? So what's stopping me? Why has it not happened already? It may happen in the next month. I may reduce the sheep significantly. I'm going to keep enough so that there's a mixture of grazing.
We're talking about emotion and tradition and other things.
Yeah, and even when you know something might be a really good decision,
Logic is there.
it can still be hard.
Yeah.
You can still be slow. I'm like talking to myself on a daily basis going, how many sheep am I selling this autumn? Oh, all them.
But
Am I
is it
really
a
gonna sell
burden?
some of my good ones? Like,
I have to do everything that's financially maximizing. That if you could just compromise some things.
well, I don't think money's everything. For me, it's more now that my values have shifted and my absolute principles about what I want my farm to be, these blessed creatures that have been my whole life until now are failing to meet my system that I built. And I can do a bunch of things to make them fit in a little bit better. I can breed them over time to fit better. But I know a truth which I can't ever unknow now, which is that they'll never do it as well as my cows. And
It's like you want to get better at a game that is actually not as good as this other game over here. And yeah.
And I think if you talk to me in 2 years, if you talk to me in 2 years' time and I've bottled it, I'm going to be really cross at myself. So I sort of know the answer, don't I?
There's a courage there.
I know the answer. I'm still struggling to be the big boy.
I do
Are you
appreciate.
sure you need to, though?
What?
Are you sure you need to?
Yeah.
Why?
He's asking the hard question.
Because of this thing, which I think I mentioned in the talk earlier, but if I didn't, I'll say it now. I've learned a truth which I'm never going to beat. And the truth is, sheep didn't evolve in Northwest Europe, in our biome, with our parasites and our foot problems. And to keep sheep in that way, there's either a very long period of brilliant people, of which I could be the beginner of a process, to make them do something beyond what they've ever done before, or for a very long time.
But they came from Scandinavia.
They didn't come from... sorry.
You're Vikings.
They'd only been in Scandinavia for about 1,000 years. It doesn't remotely fill the gap to the cow, which evolved in our biome, and can do it without. And the really awkward thing I've learned is, Doesn't matter how much James loves sheep, and it doesn't matter how clever James might be at selective breeding. He can't fill the gap. James can't solve the problem.
Of the basic genetics and evolution.
basic
and
genetic
the
issue.
animal, yeah.
And now I know that, I can't move it from my head.
But can they
And-
not,
and it's-
can they
it's-
not fulfill some ecological role on your farm?
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be overgrazing the hills. It could be something else.
Yes, but nearly everything I'd have to do with them is more propped up than it is with a cow. Or I have to change them to stop being the thing that brings me all that cultural joy.
Right.
This one might have to be sorted out at the bar into the wee hours, because I am conscious of our crowd, and do you know it is 10 to 8 in the evening?
So just very
and I don't know how this has happened,
Do you know-
but I'm delighted. that
Do you know what a regen sheep looks like? It's at Greg Judy's. It's those goatee-looking things that are awful. At which point you ask yourself, do I want goatee-looking awful things that can hack it?
or belty.
Extra cattle.
Yeah. Or am I out? Am I just out of the game? I'm actually not excited by what that sheep becomes. I don't want to do it.
And you need to be excited about your farming. You need to enjoy your farming. And I think that's a lesson for all of us.
Let's talk about sheep for at least another hour.
Well, look, everybody has an attention span, and I got the little 5-minute signal about an hour ago. So I did want to include everybody, but I just enjoyed that so much. But if there is any burning questions, there's no problem just having to go off the lads here now. Or maybe that is a lovely way to have a deep thank you to the lads for being so honest and so vulnerable about some topics that are way out of the farming. And a pleasure to have them, and a pleasure to be here. And thank you for giving me the choice to do this with Brona and Claire and everybody who's been involved in this event. It's a credit to you, and I hope there is a future in this event, whatever version it will be going forward. Thank you for coming. Don't be in a rush away. There's going to be a great social aspect. Have a chat, and best of luck on your own journeys. And don't be afraid to come together and lean on other people around you.
Bar is open.
God bless and good night, and thanks again.